Coming up, the Foreign Affairs Minister looking for answers on possible cell phone tampering. And later on in sports, the Miami Heat's third trip to the NBA Championship started right here in the Bahamas. We've got more on that. The Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Candino Knowles, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Bahamas Tonight. Well, today, June 1st, marks the official start of the 2014 Atlantic hurricane season. The United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Climate Prediction Center is forecasting a near normal or below normal season. According to NOAA, the main driver of this year's outlook is the anticipated development of El Nino this summer, which causes stronger wind shear, which reduces the number and intensity of tropical storms and hurricanes. Meteorologist Greg Thompson joins us live in studio with more details on this year's hurricane season and why residents like you should always be prepared. Good evening, Greg.
Yeah, good evening, Candino, and good evening, everybody. Of course, yeah, you did mention today beginning the first day of the official Atlantic hurricane season, and of course you mentioned those numbers there. Colorado State, which is Professor Klotzbach and Williams, he actually has the named systems for this year at 9 hurricanes, 3, and major hurricanes up at just about 1. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they have a range 8 to 13 named storms, 3 to 6 of them becoming hurricanes, 1 to 2 becoming a major hurricane. Of course, last night I mentioned the averages for the season are normally around 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 of those becoming major hurricanes. Taking a look at reasons why we are expecting such a below or just about average active season. Of course, you mentioned the moderate El Nino. At least the moderate El Nino is starting to take place out there in the Pacific Ocean, and that's a warming of the water in the Pacific Ocean that actually translates into the upper atmosphere and causes a lot of wind shear for these systems, so they don't have time to get their acts going. We also anticipate cooler tropical Atlantic Ocean water, and as I mentioned, the El Nino is going to be a major factor if it actually does get really started, and that's going to mention, as I mentioned, a higher wind shear. Taking a look at where we expect systems to start off in the season, June through the early part of the season, out there in the Gulf of Mexico, just to the south of Cuba into the Western Caribbean, and of course near the Bahamas, we expect systems to be popping up, but we don't see much in terms of any activity there as yet. But we are watching an area that's in the Gulf of Mexico. Very slight chance of that taking place or developing over the next couple of days, but we continue to track that as, of course, today begins the Atlantic hurricane season.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. Well, we'll certainly continue to follow any developments in the Atlantic. Well, National Emergency Management Agency NEMA officials held its annual monthly meeting just days before the start of this year's hurricane season to confirm its readiness in the event a storm threatens our islands. NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell chaired the meeting and fielded reports from emergency support function groups and National Disaster Committee representatives. Captain Russell says he's satisfied with the level of preparedness, especially the critical areas of emergency shelters, the Bahamas Red Cross, and public utilities. NEMA will recognize June 22nd through 28th as Disaster Preparedness Week, where preparation for a natural disaster will be highlighted. Now, NEMA is urging residents to prepare for the arrival of any severe weather system, regardless of how much activity is actually being predicted. Well, there's been no word from the United States yet about its national security agency, the NSA, allegedly recording every mobile phone conversation in the Bahamas without authorization. But Foreign Minister Fred Mitchell is off to Paraguay tomorrow in hopes of getting the facts and hopefully some definitive answers. This as the Organization of American States is holding its annual General Assembly meeting that's expected to include every country in the hemisphere except Cuba. Now, Minister Mitchell says the occasion will allow him and his team to brief colleague ministers on the recent allegations, and there will also be meetings with United States Secretary of State John Kerry and his assistant Roberta Jacobson. We're also told that an officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been tasked with gathering all the information necessary about the history of this matter.
think is important is we need to know what the facts are. Now, certain undertakings were given to us when the professional people met in Washington. The permanent secretary is here, met with a deputy assistant secretary of state, and certain undertakings were given by that officer to the permanent secretary with regard to a response to this because of the public concern about it and our own concern that on the face of it the law appears to have been violated if the reports prove to be true. So across the board, this is a matter of concern. So the government can't remain silent in the face of it. So it seems to me that the logical conclusion to it is once you find out that the law has been violated, then you've got to ask people to stop, and what follows from that.
June 26 is being observed as the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, and the Ministry of National Security took the opportunity to recognize the occasion at the Abundant Life Church this morning. National Security Minister, the Honorable Dr. Bernard Nottage, along with officers from various related agencies, commemorated the fight against illegal drugs. A number of events aimed at increasing awareness of the dangers of illegal drugs will be held this month, including a march and mini rally at Windsor Park on Sunday, June 22nd, and a documentary set to air on ZNS on Thursday, June 26th at 8 p.m. Dr. Nottage outlined some of the challenges in the war on drugs, which he says dates as far back as 3 decades ago.
Sometime in 1980, with the government recognizing the emergence of drug abuse problems in the country, appointed a task force of which I was a member. And here we are, 30 years later, still confronted with the ravages of this problem. I've come to tell you that everyone can play a critical role in preventing drug trafficking and protecting those most vulnerable in our society.
And give him all the praise.
Our 2011 secondary school drug prevalence survey showed that 40% of students in both public and private schools had been exposed to illegal drugs, with 28% of 12th grade male students admitting to having used marijuana. Dr. Nottage warned those in attendance of some of the long-term repercussions associated with using or participating, that is, in the drug trade.
But the ability of too many of our citizens to travel to the United States, or more importantly, to secure a job in their own country, is prevented by their use of drugs such as marijuana or cocaine or angel dust, especially if they are arrested and tried and convicted of possession of drugs with intent to supply.
The Validation Act passed this week in the Senate paved the way for at least 11 unions to finally be recognized as registered bodies. It was some 4 years ago when head of the Trade Union Congress, Obie Ferguson, raised the alarm about the validity of those unions being questioned. However, he said the recent passage of the Industrial Validation of Trade Unions Act 2014 was welcome news.
Overall, I think it was a move that was necessary for the workers and the unions. My only hope is that I hope that what the mischief that was created as a result of the non-registration of these unions, it is my hope that it was in fact remedied.
From the crime beat, detectives started today investigating the country's latest murder, and police are still trying to find clues on why a 28-year-old man was shot and killed around 6 o'clock Saturday evening in front of his Montgomery Avenue home. Assistant Commissioner responsible for crime, Anthony Ferguson, spoke with reporters on the scene.
The deceased was standing in the front of his residence when he was approached by a lone male who opened fire on him, hitting him several times about the body. Our information that we are working with is that the suspect fled in a southern direction, and it's believed that he got into a white vehicle.
Our police are still trying to gather more information on the man who was found hanging in western New Providence yesterday. It was shortly before 11 o'clock when officers went to the Clifton Heritage area, where the badly decomposed body of a man was found in a blue Kia Rio parked in a suspicious manner. Apparently, police may know who the victim is, as they confirmed on the scene that his family filed a missing persons report at the Nassau Street Police Station on May 25th after not seeing him since May 22nd. We'll certainly continue to follow this developing story. Well, the arduous task of or scores that is, of Progressive Liberal Party supporters gathered at Gambier House on Friday afternoon to celebrate the life and achievements of John Cooper. PLP leader, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie, touted Cooper's contribution to the party over the years as he played a pivotal role in the fight for majority rule. Mr. Christie described Cooper as a role model for the younger generation.
It is fitting for us, and particularly because we are a party in transition now from the old to the new, that we speak, right, in terms of the admiration we have for the service rendered, so that members of the family who oftentimes do not understand why their loved one gives so much, sacrifices so much, spend their own money in pursuit of it, and never seem to be rewarded in any commensurate degree for it, and why they continue to do it.
A number of supporters recently attended the official launch of the Mitchell Ikedede Brain Injury Foundation, which campaigns for the financial needs, provide educational outreach, and promote employment for survivors of brain injuries. Statistics reveal that there has been a 49.6% increase in traumatic brain injuries in the Bahamas between 1997 and 2012. Co-founder and trustee Dr. Magnus Ikedede believes this foundation will go a long way in providing financial resources to survivors of brain injuries who are not able to afford surgeries, which he confirms costs between $250,000 and $500,000.
Matthew and the rest of my patients here who not so poor and not so rich are able to, after the surgery at Princess Margaret Hospital, free of charge, thanks to the government, are able to take him to Jackson Memorial for intensive rehab. And that has cost them more than $400,000 because we do not have that kind of level of rehab in this country. And I feel as a beautiful country such as ours, for medical tourism, etc., we need a first-class medical rehab in this country.
Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie acknowledged the government's plan to contribute land to the foundation to assist brain injury survivors. While reflecting on his personal encounters with a stroke and losing his childhood friend, the late Winston Gus Cooper, to a brain injury, the nation's leader applauded organizers for this effort.
This was called before Gus went. But when he really got involved was after I had seen Gus and they were trying to pass him through some rehab process. Dr. Magnus facilitated Gus going to Jackson, the same hospital young Mitchell went to. The moral of the story is really that someone said it when they spoke. If you don't have money or insurance and you have a traumatic injury, you could very easily die.
When the weekend edition continues, Rotarians learn more about shark conservation. The Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, comes right back.